Okay, so we've had a lot of people join this webinar this afternoon. It looks like we're about to get started. My name is Gabby Hoffman. I'm the Assistant Director here at the International Students and Programs Office, and you are in one of our workshop series this week for orientation called What to Expect in an American Classroom for undergraduate students. I hope you are all undergraduate students. Any graduate students, this might not be the most helpful, but you're welcome to join. I am joined today by my colleagues who are in the room today. I'm going to go ahead and get started here with Grace Fuller and James DeLucia. They are our outreach coordinators for international and out-of-state students. I'm also joined by Amanda Brobold. Allison couldn't join us today, but she's also from the Academic Integrity Office, here to talk about academic expectations and academic integrity while you're here at UC San Diego. Just to go over briefly some of the functionality on your screen, you should have a little toolbar, a menu bar at the bottom of your screen where you can see the chat function or ask a question or raise your hand. There will be some question and answer during the webinar where you can go ahead and raise your hand or click that button if we ask you to. You can also ask a question in the Ask a Question box. We are going to try to save questions for the end of the webinar, so hold on to those questions. We're going to cover a lot of information today, but we will be on at the end to help answer any questions out loud so that people can benefit from those answers. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Grace and James to start our presentation.
Awesome. Hello and welcome. My name is Grace Fuller, and like Gabby mentioned, we're going to chat a little bit today about what to expect in a U.S. American classroom. So a little bit about us. So we're the outreach coordinators for international and out-of-state students, and we're basically the college liaison for global education. So we partner with the International Students and Programs Office a lot to ease the adjustment of our international students. Our website is a great resource to learn a little bit about who we are, and our Facebook is the best way to learn more about what we do. So if you want to take a moment and go ahead and like our Facebook page, again, it's a great way to stay informed of all the different events going on to support you as an international student.
Hi, my name is James. So like Grace, I'm one of the outreach coordinators for international out-of-state students. Together, we are the two professional staff members who run the department. But on top of ourselves, we also have 6 college interns. You can see their lovely faces over here. And basically, we have 6 college interns. Like we said, it's one for every college. So each intern's role in the college is to plan 2 programs for the international out-of-state students in that college, specifically for you to help you adjust to campus life, to San Diego life, to just American university culture.
Hi, my name is Amanda Brobold. As Gabby said, Allison couldn't be here today, so I'm the Assistant Director of the Academic Integrity Office, and I'll be talking to you a little bit about academic integrity and what that means for you here at our campus at UC San Diego. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about our Academic Integrity Office. We have 7 full-time professional staff members at our Academic Integrity Office, and also 7 assistant coordinators who are student workers in our office who help assist our students, serve our students in our office, and also dozens of peer educators who are also undergraduate students who are available for advising and help with our various educational programs at our office.
Great, so we're going to go ahead and jump in with a little bit of classroom lingo. So a lot of this will be familiar to you, but we also know that it's important to understand that we think the same things when we throw around certain terms. So to kick off with that, we're going to talk about what is the difference between a professor and a TA. So your professor is going to be your faculty member. They're typically the ones with the PhD, they do the research, and they usually give the lecture. Whereas your TA is typically a student or grad student, and they might lead more of your discussion-based classes. They're usually the ones who are grading your assignment, so it's not a bad idea to get to know your TA. But for some of your bigger lecture classes, there might be multiple TAs per that lecture. And so depending, you might have a different TA than, say, a friend in that same class.
All right, another word to be familiar with, and you might already be familiar with it, is your syllabus. And basically your syllabus is going to be an outline of your entire course for the entire quarter. So probably in your first day of classes, in each of your classes, your professor, your TA is going to give you that syllabus, and that's going to outline all the homework assignment due dates, all of the exam dates, all of the topics of each class, and all of that kind of stuff, which is a really good thing to take into account, not only just for that class, but to take all of your syllabi back and kind of look at how your quarter is going to look. So see if you have a week where you have 3 exams, or see if there's 2 really major assignments for 2 different classes due in the same week. And just take the time to mentally prepare yourself for the quarter and plan out and space out your work as needed.
Great. So our next term is curving, and curving is basically grade determined relative to your peers. So for example, if a professor is maybe piloting a new course and they haven't had students take the course before, and if the students are doing rather poorly in the course, let's say the top score is like a C minus, and most of the scores are more in that D and F range, they might curve the class so that the top score is now an A or a B, and then it would fall accordingly on that bell curve. But when you hear the term curving, again, that's going to be a grade determined more relative to your peers for the bell curve.
The next one being lecture versus discussion, doing them together. Lecture is basically, you'll have a lot of classes, and these are typically going to be your classes with your professor, where they are much larger. Maybe you have a couple of hundred students in an auditorium, and this is a lot more one-directional. This is a lot more of just your professor talking to you and giving you the information, and you kind of hearing it and learning it and absorbing it. Whereas your discussion is something that's more often going to be led by a TA or maybe just someone who's not necessarily a professor. And that's a lot more back and forth. That's a lot more question and answer, and there's a lot more collaboration, more projects, maybe more group assignments and different things like that. So just a little bit of a difference in the way that those 2 classes go.
Great. Our next term is podcast. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with what a podcast is, but what's really helpful to know is that most of your lectures will actually be recorded as podcasts. And so you can go back and listen to those lectures. Maybe a lot of material was covered during the lecture. Maybe you didn't quite understand what they were saying. And so a resource to remember is podcast.ucsd.edu. And you can go on that website and download podcasts for your different classes to use a resource when you're studying later, taking notes, etc.
And lastly, we have Clicker. And Clicker is something that maybe you're already aware of. Maybe you've already received instructions to buy one. But basically, in those larger lecture classes where there's not an opportunity for the TA to have maybe kind of question and answer, ask everyone a question, raise your hand, give feedback. So maybe there's just too many students. Clickers are how professors are going to get your feedback on things. So maybe instead of asking the class and hearing feedback, it's going to be everyone respond to a poll that they put up with the clicker, or maybe that's how they take attendance or things like that. So you might hear about students using their clickers to participate in class. And if that is something that you need, it's definitely something that your professors and TAs will tell you about in advance. All right, one of the things that we're going to talk about next is just kind of different styles of learning cultures. So here you see the 2 different paradigms. You see one is more teacher-centered learning, and that's kind of more like we were talking about before, where it's a little more one-directional, right? It's all about the teacher. The teacher has all this knowledge and experience, and they're trying to pass it on to the students who are learning. So the students come in, and it's less of a discussion. It's less back and forth. It's more just kind of coming in and learning and hearing what the professor has to say, and kind of like memorizing that and being able to give back the correct answers on an exam or assignment or whatever the case might be. The flip side of that would be a student-centered learning model, and that's where it's less one-directional, right? That's a little more less about absorbing the knowledge and memorizing it and being able to give back the right answer. And it's a little more discussion. It's a little more gray area. It's a little more about the critical thinking and the learning that goes into it. And there's a lot more participation on the side of the student. So just to give 2 examples. So typically, this is how you see it play out. If you have more of a teacher-centered learning model, you kind of see this funnel shape, right? This teacher has the knowledge and experience. And again, the arrow where it's one-directional, and they're just kind of they're passing it on to the students, and the students are there absorbing, learning, memorizing, right? Whereas in a student-centered learning model, you see a lot more collaboration. The teacher has that knowledge and experience, but everyone also has their own knowledge and their own experience, their own beliefs and opinions, and their own thoughts to contribute to the classroom discussion. And so that's where you see a lot more back and forth and a lot more discussion and a lot more participation. So for students coming from a teacher-centered learning model, it can be really intimidating to jump into a student-centered learning model. But UC San Diego has a very student-centered learning model, and so that's just one of the keys for success here is being ready to push yourself outside of your comfort zone and really participate in class, really take part in the discussions, and really push yourself out there.
So now we're going to move into a section of true false and try to make this webinar as interactive as possible. So James and I are going to read off a series of statements, and if you could answer true or false in that group chat that I see you're already communicating in, that would be awesome. Okay, so true or false? It is important to always give the correct answer when participating in class and never contradict the professor or another student.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, y'all are smart students. That's why you're here. That's why you got into UC San Diego. Exactly. So like James just said, the UC San Diego definitely has more of a student-centered learning culture here. And so again, you might want to be like, oh, I only want to say the right answer. But a lot of the times, if you're contributing to the conversation and you're moving that conversation forward, that debate, that critical thinking, and that discussion is really valued as a part of the learning process.
All right, next one. So true or false, using your cell phone while a professor or TA is speaking is okay as long as you're not talking loudly on it. True or false? Hey, who said true? I saw that. All right. Absolutely, yeah. So for the most part, we see the responses being false, and that is true. Is it false or true? It is true that it is false. Yes, it is false. You don't want to be on your phone in a classroom setting, even if it's just a quick text or just looking something up. Sometimes it's even you're looking to research something for that classroom discussion. You want to find that news article or that thing. But you really, really do want to stay off of your cell phone unless you're explicitly told by your professor to go on and look something up or to use it for like an online poll or some part of the classroom participation. Yeah, exactly. So typically, unless you hear from your professor or your TA, just stay off of your phone.
All right, true or false? Most of the time, the correct way to begin your participation in class, be it asking a question or answering a question, is by raising your hand. Yes, true. So it's definitely a good idea to raise your hand when you want to participate. We say true-ish because there will be times specifically for a discussion-based class where sometimes maybe it's only a group of 10 to 15 students. And in that regard, it's not necessarily required that you raise your hand every time you want to start talking. When it's typically a smaller group of people, you can sense when the pause is in the conversation and begin. But if you're going to be safe rather than sorry, it's definitely always a good idea to raise your hand.
All right, so one of the things that we also want to talk about today is something that happens outside of the classroom, but it's email etiquette. So you're going to use a lot of email to communicate with your advisors, your professors, your TA, everyone, right? And so here you have two different examples of emails, right? On the left, you have, hey teacher, I won't be in class today. I'm sick, so sorry. Versus on the right, you have, dear Professor Fuller, I'm writing that I will not be in class next Friday due to blank. Please let me know the best way to get the information, make up the work. Thank you for your time and help. Sincerely, blank, your name, right? And then you have the PID in the classroom or class that you're in. Obviously, I probably don't have to point out at this point that the one on the right is the example that you want to strive for. The example on the left just simply doesn't give enough detail. It's a little informal, and a couple of things that are happening correctly on the right side are, for example, on the bottom, you see that there's the PID. You always, always, always want to include your PID in pretty much any email that you're going to send to anyone, just because there are so many students at UC San Diego. Including your PID is going to make it really easy for an instructor or an advisor or someone to look you up real quick and get all of your information. Additionally, you see on the bottom that there's the class information. Your professors and your TAs probably have many, many classes that they're instructing, and having that class scheduled slot in there really helps them narrow down which class you're talking about. Additionally, even just some of the language is just that second paragraph in specific is very proactive. You usually want to be proactive when you're doing stuff like this, because if you're just saying like, oh, hey, I won't be in class, that doesn't give the extra initiative of trying to make up the work. Additionally, you can see that this is being sent in advance of the class that they're going to be sick. It's much, much better to send it in advance than to miss class and then maybe like a week later be like, hey, what did I miss? Because it shows, this way it shows that you're putting in the intention and the extra steps to get ahead of your work.
All right, so James talked a little bit about sending emails, and now we're going to talk a little bit about receiving emails. Y'all, read your emails. We wouldn't make it a slide if it wasn't a thing. So we get that email might not have been your preferred method of communication up until university. But I will say that email is how the university communicates. It's the preferred method. And so when you receive an email, we ask that you read the whole email. A lot of the times we get students who have and come to us with questions and we're like, oh, that we actually linked to that website in our email, or we linked to a document. And so we ask that if you get an email that you would read the whole thing. Especially, we have some students who are very sincere and want to be proactive, and so they'll get an email and they'll go right to the office and they'll ask their question. And the office will be like, oh, did you actually read the whole email? And they're like, no. And they're like, well, that question was answered in your email. So you never want to get the professional clapback of per my last email, aka if you read the email, you would know the answer to this question. So as a joke, but a true and sincere plea, please read your email. Cool. Okay, so we're going to go back to a little bit more classroom lingo, and this will be a little bit more UC San Diego specific. So mandatory. We all know what mandatory means. You have to do it, but something that you may not know is that there are times when if it's mandatory and it's communication from the university, there are some consequences that might go with it. So for example, let's say you skip your college orientation even though it was mandatory. If that happens, you could get a hold placed on your account and then you won't be able to sign up for classes. And that can have some pretty serious consequences on your academic career. So again, if you hear the word mandatory, not only should you do it just from a general point of view, but there also might be some consequences in place if you don't do it.
Another thing that you hear a lot is going to be office hours, and office hours are going to be crucial to success at UC San Diego. This kind of goes back to what we talked about before with the different learning models. UC San Diego having more of a student-centered learning model means that your professors and your TAs want to be very approachable, and they want you to come to your office hours. And if you're used to more of a setting where it is one directional, where maybe you just come to class and listen and memorize, that can be really intimidating sometimes. But the office hours are a really good tool just to, one, make a personal connection with your professor or TA. It's totally okay to just stop by and say hi and introduce yourself. You don't always have to have a question. And again, that can be kind of jarring because it seems like, oh, I don't want to waste my professor or TA's time, but that's not really a waste of time. That's what those office hours are for. That's the time they're setting aside for their students. So if you have questions, if you need help with assignments, if you haven't understood something from your lecture, don't hesitate to go to those office hours, even if that seems maybe a little different from what you're used to.
Okay, so what's the difference between Triton Ed and Triton Link? So Triton Ed, and sometimes Canvas, is essentially going to be how your professor or TA might utilize a website to assign coursework, maybe to assign reading, to a place where you can submit some of your assignments, and then where you can see some of your grades. So that's going to be pretty academically focused in the classroom, whereas Triton Link is going to include other resources, but not necessarily relevant to in the classroom. So this is where you might find any financial aid information, you might find some student health insurance information, so general resource that relate to your life as a student, but not necessarily in the classroom.
The next one is your advisor, and lucky y'all, as international students, you have 3 advisors. So you have not only a college advisor, not only a department advisor, but also an international advisor. That's something for you to definitely keep in mind as you make changes to your courses. Your college advisor is going to help you with your GEs, your time to graduation, your things like that. Your department advisor is going to help you getting into certain majors, help you reaching those major requirements, doing all that stuff. But also as you start making changes to your course schedule and things like that, say, for example, you need to drop a course. You might tell your college advisor, you might tell your department advisor, but if you don't tell your international advisor, that's something that could put your visa status in jeopardy. That's something that could kind of mess with some of those things that are specific to you as international students. And it's really important that you keep this in mind because you can't always assume that all three advisors are talking to one another. We hope so, and we have systems in place to try and make sure. But as you, the student, it's your job to go to your three advisors and make sure that all three of them are on the same page. Because if you don't keep them all in the loop, you can't assume that they're doing that for you, right? As a student, it's your responsibility to make sure that all of your course requirements are in good standing.
All right, so first pass and second pass refers to signing up for classes. Now, most of you already have been signed up for classes by your college advisor for the fall quarter, but near the end of fall quarter, you're going to get some information about signing up for winter quarter classes and then spring, etc. And when you do this, you will have your first pass and then your second pass. So you're not going to necessarily sign up for all of your classes at the same time. Instead, you'll have a certain amount of units allotted for the first pass, and then after that's complete, you'll have the rest of your units allotted for the second pass. Now, the reason why this is important is because if you are trying to get into a really difficult class, let's say it's a class for a capped major, or you just know that it's really competitive, there's a lot of people trying to get into that class, you want to prioritize signing up for those classes during your first pass. That's when you're going to have the best chance to get into those classes. Now, for other classes where it doesn't really matter as much when you take them, you have a little bit more flexibility, you would rather save those classes for your second pass and thus build your fall quarter or your quarter schedule from there.
And the last one on the screen here is VAC, which stands for your Virtual Advising Center. And your VAC is basically a chance for you to ask any advising questions specifically to your college advisor about whatever it might be. But if it's a quick question, we typically advise that you go to your VAC because you don't want to go to your college's advising office and find that there's a long line or there's no walk-in hours or it's by appointment only, and then you book a 30-minute appointment for a question that takes 5 minutes, right? For your own time and efficiency and just speed of response, the VAC is going to be a great place to go to with those really quick, simple questions. If it's something a little more complicated, we definitely recommend that you book an appointment. There are walk-in hours, but be mindful that every college has slightly different advising walk-in hours. So if you come in during a time that's not walk-in hours, they're just going to tell you to turn around and book an appointment at a time that's available. So be mindful of using your own time efficiently. Start with the VAC, see if you can get your questions answered there. And then if not, either book an appointment or go to the walk-in hours when you know the walk-in hours are happening.
All right, back to some fun true-false. So true or false, you need to speak to an international student advisor before considering dropping below 12 units. Your college academic advisor is not the only person to speak to when doing this. True or false? Yes, I like what I'm seeing. It's true. So again, similar to what James said, you as the student, especially in a university setting, you're kind of responsible for your own journey. We hope that our advisors are talking to each other and there are systems in place, but when you're making changes, specifically considering dropping 12 units, that might change your status. And so you really want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with that. And your international student advisor is going to be the best advisor to help you considering where to go moving forward.
All right, true or false? Deadlines outside of the classroom are more like suggestions or guidelines, and they're not as important or strict as classroom deadlines. So say, for example, signing up for housing or applying for leadership positions, those are a little less strict. True or false? Yeah. All right. Very good. Yeah. So this is false, right? So we here in the United States take our deadlines very, very seriously, and especially at such a large university, sometimes for things to function smoothly, we need to really adhere to those deadlines. We see this sometimes, like say, for example, I used to work in housing, and sometimes people come up and they're like, oh, I missed the housing deadline. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And they're like, right, but like, what's the late fee? Like, what do I have to do? Nope, you missed it. You don't get housing. And that can be a little tough, right? So just something to be mindful of. Anything that you're doing on campus here, those deadlines are super strict and really set in stone. And usually there's no room for negotiation on that. So it's really, really important that you stick to those.
All right, time for more classroom lingo. So first bit of lingo here that we're going to define is academic integrity. And this is a really common term that you're going to hear probably in almost every classroom that you enter here at UC San Diego. Your professor will have something to say about academic integrity standards that are particular to this classroom. But I want to give you a definition that's the definition, the university-wide way of defining academic integrity that will have more specific applications having to do with whatever the specific rules and guidelines are of each specific class you take. So the general definition of academic integrity that we use throughout our university here at UC San Diego is having the courage to uphold honesty, respect, responsibility, fairness, and trustworthiness, even when it's difficult to do so. And something that I want to highlight about this definition, because there's quite a number of words there, quite a number of things in the definition, are that one, thinking about what academic integrity means is about thinking about our values and the way we put those values into action. So it's about thinking about the choices that you make and the actions that you take throughout your everyday life, the whole time that you're a student here at UC San Diego. So it's about getting into the habit of asking yourself about these values: honesty, respect, responsibility, fairness, and trustworthiness, and the way they apply to everything that you do here at UC San Diego. So the way you complete your assignments, the way you interact with other students, the way you interact with professors, instructional staff, TAs, just getting in the habit of thinking about how are you going to be honest? How are you going to be respectful? What does it mean to fulfill your responsibilities? What does it mean to be fair? What does it mean to earn trustworthiness? And how can you get in the habit of asking yourself those questions and noticing opportunities to implement those values in your everyday life here? And then also noticing that there are going to be moments where it's really hard to implement those values. Here at UC San Diego, there are times where all of us get really stressed out. All of us face a lot of pressure and get overwhelmed. And when we face pressure and we get overwhelmed, sometimes it's hard to live according to those values that we all share as a community. And so something that we can all do is just recognize that it will be hard for us to do that. And so what we as a community want to do is be familiar with this definition so that we can think through how we can implement those values. And your professors are going to talk about what that means in your specific classrooms as it connects to their guidelines and their expectations and requirements for specific assignments as it comes up throughout your time here. Okay, we've got a little bit more classroom lingo. So we have 4 terms here. Other things that you'll hear a lot come up: an academic integrity violation, academic misconduct, academic dishonesty, cheating. All of these terms really mean the same thing. These are all really equivalent ways of talking about really similar things, which basically are in contradiction to what we just talked about. So all of these are just different ways of saying that there are cases where those fundamental values we just talked about of respect, responsibility, honesty, fairness, trustworthiness were not upheld. And that might be referred to using any of these terms, really means the same thing. And of course, these are all things that we want to aim to avoid, that we want to make things that don't happen here at our UC San Diego community, because they undermine what we're trying to do here, right? They undermine the work that we're all doing so hard. We're all working so hard to earn the degrees that we're getting, the grades that we're getting. And so we really want to all strive to make these things not happen. Okay. So just some more examples of those things that I was just talking about: academic misconduct, academic integrity violations, cheating, because sometimes things that might not occur to us immediately are examples of those. So I just want to go through some of the common examples that we might not think of right away. Completing an assignment with others when you aren't given permission. So typically the expectation at an institution like UC San Diego will be, if you're given an assignment and you're given an individual grade on that, you are to do that assignment alone unless the instructor specifically tells you that you are to collaborate on that assignment. So you'll be told when you're supposed to work together. If you're not told you're supposed to work together, the expectation is that you work alone. Using aids during an examination, same thing. If you're allowed to bring a piece of paper that has formulas written on it, if you're allowed to bring a calculator, any of those kinds of things, you will explicitly be told. If you aren't explicitly told that, then it would be a violation or it would be cheating to use those things during the exam. Using sources without a citation, that's always going to be considered a violation. You always want to reference any source that you use in your writing or any assignment. You always want to give credit and just basically let whoever's reading that assignment know what resources you used. Altering a graded examination or an assessment and then resubmitting it for regrading. In many of your classes, you'll be able to submit assignments for a regrade. The reason for this is the people grading your assignments are human beings, and sometimes they make errors. And so a lot of times professors and instructional staff will allow students to resubmit and ask that their assignment is regraded. Making any changes or any alterations whatsoever to that assignment before you submit it to a regrade, that would be considered academic misconduct. Copying another student's assignment, even just part of it, and submitting it as your own work would also be considered a violation. Copying an online quiz, assignment, answers from the internet, maybe a previous version of a quiz or notes, anything like that. And then also using a translator. This is something that a lot of students don't necessarily realize isn't allowed, but the expectation is here that you are not using translators, that you are doing the work in English yourself. We recognize, of course, that many students might have anxieties about that. We do have resources on campus available to you. We're going to talk about that a little bit at the very end of the presentation. And we also really encourage you to communicate with resources on campus, communicate with your instructional staff. If that's something that you feel like you need assistance with and you want help with, rather than resorting to something that might be considered cheating or might be considered academic misconduct, please communicate to the resources on campus, communicate to your instructional staff about your concerns, about what you have anxieties about, and we will connect you with appropriate help. All right, time for some more true-false. Okay, so some of you are probably familiar. There's a website called Chegg, which offers, notes, different kinds of resources for students is how they describe themselves. So let's say you go on Chegg to get some help for your homework assignment. And lucky for you, they're offering a promotion because Chegg is often a subscription-based service, so they ask you for money. But they're offering a promotion that says that if you submit some of your own code as example material, they'll waive the subscription fee. And you just happen to be a coding wizard. You have some of your code on hand, maybe from a past class. So true or false? There's no harm in uploading the code just to see what resources Chegg has. You might not even use any of the resources there. All right, good. I'm seeing a lot of falses there, and a couple maybes. And I think, that's understandable too. So it's true. Generally speaking, this is going to be false, at least if what you're uploading is material that you've written for a previous class. Code or any material that you've submitted as part of a problem set or anything that was for a class at UC San Diego, you will not be allowed to upload to any public websites like Chegg or anything like that. Any place that you want to store it will have to be password protected and not publicly available. If that's created as a part of a class, you're not allowed to just post it openly. So you want to make sure that you read all of the requirements for a class so you understand that. And if you ever do want to post code or store it anywhere like that and you're not sure that it meets the requirements, always just talk to an instructor, let them know what you want to do, and ask questions about whether or not that meets the requirements. Okay, another true-false. You're up late one night working on a paper for your college writing program. It's 3 a.m. and you're almost done with your paper, but you start falling asleep at your computer. Lucky for you, back home it's midday, so your mom offers to finish your paper for you. True or false? It's okay for your mom to finish your paper so that you can get some sleep. You did most of the work anyway. Okay, good. I'm seeing a lot of false. Of course, this is a very nice and supportive offer from your mom, and she means well, and your sleep is very important to you. Those things are all true. However, the paper was assigned to you, and it is not okay for your mother to write the paper. Of course, ideally, you would, not wait till 3 a.m. and get yourself stuck into the situation. If you are, there are other solutions, other honest solutions that wouldn't result in academic misconduct, such as email your instructor and say, hey, I'm almost done. This is where I'm at. I'm falling asleep. I really need to go to sleep. My paper's attached. Can I have just another 1 day, 2 days to finish my paper so that I can sleep for a couple of hours right now? can I please have that extension? The vast majority of our instructors are going to give you that extension, and then you can get some sleep and finish up that paper in the next couple of days. All right, another true false. You're up late one night working on a paper for your college writing program again. It's 3 a.m. and you've only written a paragraph this time. But lucky for you, an ad pops up offering to write plagiarism-free paper for you for just a small fee. True or false, it's okay to pay someone to write the paper. It won't be plagiarism because it's original work. And besides, if you pay for it, it's yours. Excellent. I'm seeing a lot of falses there. Absolutely, this is false. This is not an acceptable thing to do at all. It is something that we hear occasionally from people who have the misunderstanding that if they've bought work, they own it. And you can kind of see where that mindset might come from, but it's really, really important for you to understand that that is not the understanding of academic work that we expect here at UC San Diego. Institutions like ours, what we want from students is work that they've completed themselves, not work that they've contracted somebody else to do. Paying for it does not make it yours in the sense that matters for submitting work academically here at our institution. All right, and that connects directly to the next bit of classroom lingo we're going to talk about. What are tutors, what are editors, what is helping versus cheating, and what is a thing called contract cheating? You can go on to the next slides. So we have a couple example emails here.
Yeah, so just another example email. So let's say on the left you see, hey, dear tutor, I'm hoping you can help me with my assignment attached. It's pretty much done, but English is my second language, so I'm a little nervous about the grammar. Can you read it over and let me know what I still need to work on? Thanks, James. Versus, dear tutor, I'm hoping you can help me with my assignment. I've attached an outline and the essay prompt. It should be 7 pages, include 3 references. Can you please help me find more references, fix my grammar errors, and finish the draft of the paper? Thanks, James. Dear tutor. Yeah, so you can see, oh yeah, go ahead, you can see it.
Yeah, so you can see clearly, especially this one on the right, we have some clear concerns with, right? There are some very big red flags that are coming up with this one on the right. So let's say some things to compare and contrast the one on the left to the one on the right, right? The one on the left here, the student is saying, can you help me with my assignment? I've done it, but I'm a little bit nervous about it. And one of the really key things that we can see in the one on the left that makes it seem like this is really just asking for help is the student says, can you read it over and let me know what I still need to work on? So the help the student is asking for there is not, will you finish my paper or will you correct it for me? But instead, will you point out the parts of the paper that I myself am then going to go on to correct? That's the kind of help that you want to be looking for. If you have anxieties about your writing, that's exactly the kind of help you want. Will you tell me what I can do a better job on? Will you tell me what I need to correct? Will you tell me where I'm not doing as strong of a job as I could have done? That kind of thing. Whereas on the right, the person is just directly sending their essay prompt and hoping that the person will write parts of it for them. So that's a big red flag. Anytime you find yourself sending the essay prompt itself to anyone, warning, don't do that. Anytime you find yourself sending someone the actual assignment you were given, that's a bad sign. That should send a red flag up in your head and say, wait, this is not the kind of help I need to be asking for. This is a crossing a line into cheating. Okay, so definition for you here, contract cheating is just getting someone else to create, either in part or completely, an assignment for you. Whether you pay the person for help or they do it as a favor or in trade for something, that's contract cheating. And contract cheating is one of the most serious kinds of cheating, one of the most serious kinds of academic misconduct that you can engage in here. And so it's really serious. It's really important to recognize what that is. And sometimes students can not recognize it because they might think that they mistake it for help. So it's really key to look for those kinds of red flags. They might be things like an essay writing service or a friend or a classmate or a family member offering to help. There might be websites that cater to this. It could be private tutors who call themselves tutors, but in fact are contracting to write assignments or copy editors. So look for those red flags, the kind of tutoring that we want you to look for. We have many, many on-campus resources that are trained in the appropriate kind of help and here to support you and help facilitate your learning. And you want to look for that kind of help where someone is explaining to you, here are your areas for development, here are the places you could do a better job, this is a mistake that I think you could correct. Those are really good examples of help. Examples of red flags are if you're sending someone your assignment or your essay prompt, if someone is actually doing the writing for you, if you're ever submitting anything that you don't fully and completely understand because you didn't do the work yourself. Those are definite red flags and absolutely behaviors to be avoided. So yeah, we talked about this a little bit. Big red flags, someone messaging you, the way a tutor might talk about their services might make you feel nervous. To be honest, some of these services, some of these tutoring services really go after students to play on their nervousness and their anxieties. If you maybe waited to the last minute and you're feeling that pressure, some of these services, they charge a lot of money and they try to take advantage of students when they're feeling panicked. And so if you're getting targeted with that kind of advertising and you feel on the one hand, oh, this is going to relieve my stress, but also this person is kind of coming at me a lot, see that as a red flag and avoid those services.
But doesn't everyone? So this is kind of an interesting idea, right? Of like, and sometimes when we think about cheating, a question is, how seriously do we take this? And you might be thinking like, yeah, of course you say cheating is wrong. Like you work for the university, you have to say that. But a helpful analogy can be cheating is similar to speeding because you know the rules. You know that you shouldn't speed, but you do it anyways. Because sometimes you're late and sometimes you're in a rush and sometimes you just go faster than you realize. And you see the other cars on the road are speeding too, so it must be fine. And you might be in a certain context where, yeah, in the place where I just lived, I could go 10 or 15 miles over the speed limit and it was fine. But you're moving to a place where you go 1 mile over the speed limit and you're getting a speeding ticket. And so this idea of how seriously do we take this and what are the consequences in place and are we ready to put in those consequences? We want you to know that academic integrity is taken pretty seriously here at UC San Diego. And because we take it seriously, there are a lot of resources in place to support you because we want you to thrive here.
Right, absolutely. So, we understand that a lot of students come to our university with this idea, and it's really important that this isn't just, a part of what professors mentioned, a part of this orientation kind of as a formality. It's here because it actually is absolutely central to the university. We understand you're here because it means so much to you to earn a degree from our university. And the reason it means so much to you to earn a degree from our university is because our degrees mean a lot to other people. The only reason our degrees mean a lot to other people is because we take integrity so seriously here. And so it's really important that yeah, we actually do mean it. This is in fact the most important thing to us. But we also know that it's hard. Go back to that first definition, or I'll refer to that first definition that I gave of integrity, where I said, those fundamental values, respect, responsibility, honesty, trustworthiness, they're hard sometimes. And so we know that lack of time management, that time pressure, it can make you tempted to cheat sometimes. The pressure to succeed, that can make you tempted to cheat sometimes. Struggling with academics, language challenges or anxiety about language can make you pressured to cheat sometimes. Personal stresses, everyone is going to have something that comes up in their life probably at some time within the next couple of years. That can make you pressured to cheat sometimes. Perceptions about the class or the instructor, maybe taking a class that you're not super excited to have to take. All of these things can lead to the pressures to cheat. And so we really want to be realistic about the fact that every person is faced with that temptation sometimes, and we want you to be prepared to think through ahead of time, what are you going to do to prepare yourself to make the right choice when that happens? Not if, but when. Okay. Well, one thing is to think about why it's so important to make the right choices. And it's because there really are some very serious consequences. Cheating can affect your GPA or your ability to enroll. It can result in a reduced grade, a 0 on the assignment, maybe even an F in the class. You could fail the class. It can result in probation, suspension, or dismissal from the university. And I want to highlight, if any of those 4 things happen to you, if your GPA is affected or your ability to enroll, if you get a reduced grade or a 0 on the assignment, you fail a class, if you're facing probation, suspension, or dismissal, you absolutely want to talk to the International Students and Programs Office. You want to talk to that international advisor, because it can make you go under the 12 units. It could affect your status. So you definitely want to talk to your international advisor if you end up facing any of those consequences at the top there. But importantly also, these things can affect your ability to learn, right? You're here to not just gain a degree, but also gain skills that are going to prepare you for what's next, going to prepare you for graduate school or professional school or for a job. And if you walk away with that degree, but you don't have what's behind it, what needs to be, and then what you're gaining to prepare you for the next step, then that's really going to be a problem down the line. So you want to think about that as well. And then the other thing is that cheating behaviors affect more than just you, right? They affect the other people in the class. They affect your professor. They affect our whole university community. They could degrade the value of the degree. So you really want to think about the community that you're embedded in. And that's what that diagram up there is about. It's about you, your classmates, your instructor, UCSD more broadly, and about the society. You know, thinking about the career that you're going to be a part of, whether you're going to be, you know, an engineer, whether you're going to be someone who's doing biomedical research, whatever those things are, preparing yourself to make good, honest, responsible, trustworthy, fair choices is going to make a big difference. UCSD students go on to have big impacts in the world, and thinking about the kind of impact you want to make is really valuable. All right, so you really can do this. You can get through UCSD and do an excellent job and excel with integrity here. The overwhelming majority of our students do. We have amazing students here at this university, and you wouldn't be coming here if you weren't an amazing student. And so we have a lot to help you do that. Learn how to manage your time. There's different resources on campus also to give you some tips on that. Seek those things out, get a planner, think ahead, manage your time well. Know the rules and standards, ask questions, read your syllabus, read the guidelines for assignments, ask questions of your instructional team if you need to. Use the resources available to you. We're going to have a big list of resources for you at the end of this presentation. And you can also always, you know, ask any of the staff on campus for more details about any of those. People on this campus are very, very happy to connect students to resources that are most appropriate for them at any turn. Seek help early. Don't wait till you're in crisis. Anticipate things that might be helpful to you and just ask for help. Really, people on this campus really do love to be helpful. Have a method for organizing and making ethical decisions. So I've referred to this a few times, but think through what's going to be challenging for you. Think about that class that maybe you don't care that much about, and think about how you're going to motivate yourself to engage. Or think about what's going to be a personal challenge for you. If you have trouble speaking up, or a time that you're going to be particularly overwhelmed, maybe you're taking an extra class that term, something like that, and think through how you're going to keep yourself on track and stay true to your values at those really challenging times. And remember that if you do make a mistake, because all of us do sometimes, that it's an opportunity to learn. Ask yourself, how am I going to do better next time? How am I going to make sure that this is really an exception? What's going to be my strategy for doing better next time? And remember, we're here to support you. Because we take academic integrity so seriously, we do have a lot of resources in place. And you're going to do a great job here. So we're on to talk about resources here. And number one, of course, is the Academic Integrity Office. This is a picture of our website. There's tons and tons of information on our website. It's integrity.ucsd.edu. You can read through, there's tons of FAQs, tons of resources and information. There's workshops you can sign up to attend, and you can also sign up to meet one-on-one with a peer educator who can give you tips, talk about what resources might be best for you personally, talk about any situations you're facing that you're not sure how to handle. So our website is really a good first stop, and it can connect you to lots of other things.
Some other resources in place are language resources. We get that taking an entire university experience in another language can be extremely challenging, and which is why we want to support you as much as we can. So one program hosted by the International Students and Programs Office is English in Action. And you can sign up for that program and get paired with a native English speaker and sign up once a week to meet and talk and to practice your English abilities. Another opportunity is language conversation tables, and that's run by our international house. And that's an opportunity. English is offered as one of the language conversation tables, as well as a myriad of other languages. And again, to give you an opportunity to practice.
All right, so another useful resource is just going to be where you find your textbooks. Obviously, we all know university textbooks sometimes can be a little bit expensive. So there's a couple different options where you might be able to find some things for a little cheaper, things like that. First and foremost, we all know that at the UC San Diego bookstore is where you can get any book that you need. And that's where, no hassle, quick and convenient, definitely in stock. You can go and you can get the textbook that your professor needs you for your class. So that is the the easiest route to go, but sometimes you're paying a little bit of a convenience there. It's a little more expensive than maybe some other options. So if you're looking to save a little money, another option might be going on Amazon and renting a textbook. A lot of times they will let you rent a textbook for just a quarter or just for a set amount of time. And so you can use it. Be careful not to get it any messed up or to write in the margins or anything. But then once you're done with it, you send it back, and it still costs, a fraction of the price of what the textbooks cost to buy. So you save a little bit of money there by not actually purchasing it. Another option there, even to just avoid the rental, is purchasing or renting an online version of a textbook. Depending on the publisher and the edition of the textbook, sometimes you can find an online version and just kind of follow along there. You lose the benefit of having something on hand, something concrete, something tangible, like write notes on and things like that. But if you don't mind reading your textbooks on a laptop or iPad or something like that, an online textbook could be a good option for you. And then there are some kind of peer-to-peer resources. So on Facebook, you'll find 2 Facebook groups. One is called UCSD Free or For Sale, and one is called UCSD Textbook Sharing. The Free or For Sale is where other UCSD students are going to be selling textbooks that they're done with, or sometimes maybe even giving away if they're feeling really nice, just want to get rid of it. And so if you find that Facebook group and join, you can sometimes find what you're looking for at such a fraction of the price. The only difference is that there's a little more hassle in that. You can't guarantee that what you're looking for is going to be in there. And same thing with the UCSD textbook sharing. In there, you'll see maybe you have another classmate who's in the same class as you, but you have it on Tuesdays and they have it on Wednesdays. So maybe you can find some kind of agreement where you both buy the book together or rent the book together and split your time with it. Again, a little more hassle, but if you're trying to save money, it might be a good option for you.
There are other resources on campus, like Amanda mentioned, and again, using these resources on campus is what we would really recommend. It's usually when students get in trouble is they go off campus and they look for outside help. Whereas if you go to any of these resources, they're going to give you some really good help and some really good just assistance during your time here. So OASIS is our Office of Academic Support and Instructional Services. They have both a language writing program as well as a math and science tutorial program. The Teaching and Learning Commons is in Geisel Library, and there's a critical writing hub that offers one-on-one appointments and workshops. And this can be really relevant, especially for our four-year college students, because they also have writing workshops that are relevant to each of your specific college writing programs. And they can give you a lot of help depending what college you're in. Again, like you have an academic advisor, and so they're great when you're navigating certain things. CAPS is our Counseling and Psychological Services. ISPO, or International Students and Programs Office, us, your outreach coordinators for international out-of-state students, your professor and your TA. So again, there's a lot of different resources here in place to support you.
All right. So in terms of getting involved and using some of these resources, we definitely want to just take a quick second and really encourage you once you get here to get involved on campus. Some students sometimes come here, this is a competitive university, you come here with the mindset of like, I am here to study and to do well and get good grades and get a good job, period, done, that's it, right? And we really encourage you to step out of that and immerse yourself in the full student experience. Join some clubs, join some orgs, meet some, go to events, do things like that. One, because it's good on kind of a holistic level, and two, again, I bet a lot of you are maybe looking for jobs here in the United States after you graduate, and I can tell you for sure that when you interview in a US setting, it's a lot more informal than it is in many cultures. So a lot of the first part of your interview is just going to be chatting, finding common interests, making sure that you're a good fit for the company. You always hear people say that. And so you might want to be able to talk about like, oh, wow, yeah, I played the same sport, or, oh, I was in the same fraternity or sorority, or, oh, what's that?
I was a peer educator.
Yeah, I was a peer educator, exactly. You can find these little things where before you even jump into those nitty-gritty interview questions, you can find a common thread based on the interests that you shared in your college experience. So not only is it good for you holistically, not only does it build you a larger network of people who are maybe become alumni at companies that you want to work at for, et cetera, but it's also just good because you're going to use those experiences. If you go into an interview someday and you're like, yep, I studied and I did nothing else, you might have really good grades, but they might have other candidates with really good grades who also have extracurriculars that really help them shine. So definitely recommend it.
And speaking of getting involved, we have a lot of different events that you can come to. So 2 events that we host every single week are Outreach Trivia Night and our Passport to Culture. So Outreach Trivia Night is similar to a pub-style trivia where each week we have 6 categories. One of those categories is always going to be about California, another state, and another country. See what we did there? And the other 3 categories are going to be more miscellaneous. So they could be Harry Potter or Beyonce lyrics or something totally random, because first place gets free coffee at Muirwoods Coffee House, and second place gets to be a category that the second place team chooses. They come back, pick something that only they know about, screw over all their friends, and then get free coffee. And then Passport to Culture is our weekly program on Thursday afternoon. So every week we feature a different country, and then we invite students who have lived in that country to share about their experience there. We also have free food representative of that country, and it's just a great way to talk about life, to talk about culture, to talk about living around the world, and it's a wonderful program, so come on out.
Watch more webinars and attend in-person workshops by visiting iwebinars.ucsd.edu.